And we are live. Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to Lunch and Learn. My name is Nyaki, and this is your lunchtime live. Today it's me. Usually it's Kopano, but she is on leave. And so today we are going to be doing something awesome. You guys know I love talking about money. You know I love talking about investing. If you don't, hello and welcome. You're going to learn today about savings and investing. But also how to make, so the premise of money babies, right? So how do you make money babies? Understanding what money babies are. Money babies are basically like when your money makes more money babies, right? When your money makes more money, that's money babies. And so how do you do that? And today we have got a colleague and someone that I've been working quite closely with for the past couple of, I want to say years, a little bit, a couple of months, few months, and an app that I absolutely enjoy using, and I've been working with them for a little while, and they are going to take me on holiday. Not them specifically, but the money that I invest via the platform is going to take me on holiday. That's the plan. So they're not going to give me money directly, but I'm definitely going to be using their technology and their systems to be able to do that. So let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you are here. I know I'm trying to still connect to Instagram. I can't right now because I don't have the Instagram details and password. I'm going to try one last time to connect with Instagram so that I can go live there. But if you are joining us from Facebook or not Facebook, from LinkedIn, YouTube, let me know. So that I can see you and be present with you in your life. Give me 2 seconds while I join and log on to Instagram. For whatever reason, Instagram just doesn't connect automatically. So, you got to do what you got to do. And then, Kabano, I do think if you are watching, I think there's going to be an OTP verification that's going to go to you or to someone. If you can watch out for that. No, Cabano, this password is incorrect. Okay, I won't be able to go live on Instagram because I can't log on to Club She Is Instagram, which is sad for me, I guess. But maybe actually, yeah, no, I won't be able to do that. Okay, so for now, we're going to be live on, let me put on Facebook. We're going to be live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I can see there are 8 people live watching, which is amazing. Just let me know where you are joining us from. Please, I beg, so that we know that we're not talking to ourselves. But if you are catching the replay, also, please do let us know where you are joining from and like whether or not this was helpful for you. Well, it will be helpful, I know for certain, but that it was helpful for you. Okay, so I'm going to get our guests to introduce themselves and then introduce the product and then run away with the presentation. Cassidy!
Hello, Nyaki. It's so
How
great
are
to be
you,
here.
Cass?
I'm
Yo, we have
well.
such difficulties joining. Woo.
I'm happy it's Friday. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
It's
and
been
the
a long,
internet
short
gamblers
week.
are not going to win anymore.
No, tech on a Friday is always a nightmare.
I
But
like,
we
I'm
win.
not, yeah. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about why you're here and why the girls should be listening to you. I know why they should be listening to you. I've already said, because you're going to let us all be baddies in Bali, but let us understand what that means and what you will tell us where you are from.
Of course. So my name is Cassie Nudal. I lead growth at Franc, which is a digital wealth coach that's helping everyday South Africans save and invest with confidence. And that's really important to us because there are obviously many opportunities to invest, many investing platforms out there, and in South Africa specifically. But the key insight that we have really doubled down on as a business is that so many people are anxious and lack confidence to actually start investing. So people know they need to do it. They know they need to grow their money, but they don't know where to start and they don't have the confidence to start. So we've really built our product in a way that we inspire that confidence. We grow it through features that help to build habits, and we make it really easy to get started. And this masterclass, I guess, is how we're going to help that along as well. So we want to just establish some foundational knowledge around investing, and with it also the habits, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail now when we present the actual masterclass. With it, some really, really fascinating insights that we've just recently doubled down on through our reports, about those key behaviors and levers that will really help you to build confidence when it comes to your finances, to become a baddie and body back in Yaki.
Yes. Always
Yes.
Betty and Bali vibes, Cass. That's what we're doing
I
it
love
for.
it.
I know some people it's for, like, for their kids to go to school and all those responsible things. But let's just
You're a
pretend.
baddie parent then.
Betty and Bali. Roberta says she's joining from the beach. Yeah, you see, she's a beach.
Ah,
She's a baddie at the beach today.
she's having the best Friday. Love it for her.
Kill
Okay,
us.
fantastic.
Or let's get into it. Cass, kill it. Let's
Cool.
kill it.
Let's go. Okay, so I know this is a little bit interactive and I can see all the comments, so I'm really keen to get people's feelings. I like to check in by asking people to finish the sentence for whatever they feel. I should be investing, but I feel overwhelmed, intimidated, curious, ready. I'm really keen to hear where you're at, and a bit of a disclaimer. We're going to check in a little bit at the end, and I just want to see if we've grown from that, and if we feel a little bit more ready after the masterclass than we did before.
Cass,
I'm not going to wait too long.
out.
I'm hoping that those reactions come in, but let's jump into the actual content. So as I mentioned, we've recently done a really interesting report. We surveyed over 3,500 South Africans. They were all Franc customers, but obviously span a very wide demographic of South Africans. And we asked them a few different questions about their money. And that spanned over 3 different pillars: about how they prepared for the future and any emergencies, about how they were, I guess, the behaviors that they'd built around growing their money for the future, and then how they felt about their money, so their mindset. And that's obviously really important, because finances is as much about how you feel about it as it is about how much you have in the bank. And what we found really changed the way that we wanted to approach financial knowledge. And I'll tell you why. Because 64% of these respondents rated their investment knowledge as intermediate or above, which is really high. We were quite surprised to see that. We thought it would be much lower than that. But 87% of those didn't have enough saved for an emergency, which is obviously really, really important. And we'll go into why. But from a Franc perspective, and this is really a key value of ours, everyone should have that safety net before they even think about starting investing. So we realized the problem isn't necessarily only knowledge. There is obviously a problem when it comes to knowledge. I think everyone could always know more when it comes to investing and their money. But that's not the only problem. The problem is also the confidence and habits to actually start. And you'll see that this masterclass is really designed to build that out. The other key insight, and I think is obviously really relevant here in this forum with this audience, is there was a gender confidence gap, and women in this room should be outperforming men. Our research found that when income and education are equal, the gap between men and women investing did come down to one thing: confidence. So everything else meant that women were on top. Confidence was the only thing that brought them down. And again, this was the key insight that many of our of these slides are built around, and our product is built around as well. So we've developed what we call the wealth habit mindset, and we've really designed the user experience around this mindset. And we really believe that financial confidence isn't built around one big move. It's built around small, repeatable steps done over and over again. You start with small habits. Those small habits and winning at those small habits mean you build belief and grow confidence. When you build confidence, you see even more small wins, and then you reach financial freedom by cycling through these small habits and growing your confidence over time. Okay, so that's a bit of an intro to how we have approached wealth, how we've approached growing your money, how we've approached investing. Now let's go into the actual knowledge and the foundations that everyone should know when it comes to investing, that can build your confidence to actually get started. So we're going to go over budgeting. I know it sounds super boring. I personally really enjoy it. I'm an Excel girl. But it is one of the most important things to start with before you even get into investing. That really helps you to understand your money and where it's going, and build confidence around that. Then we're going to go into why you need an emergency fund. I've already said it. It's really important. We'll go over why. We'll then go into the basics of investing. We'll have built some good knowledge ahead of that, and then we'll tie that all up in a nice little neat bow, and talk about investment portfolio and building that out for you and what you need to have in the building blocks for it. So before you can invest, you need to know where your money is going. Obviously, you put money into your investment, and you need to know where that money is, where it's going, and how you can make more of it to put into your investments. And this is the foundation that everything else is built on. So one of the ultimate good money habits is to budget, to save, or invest. And that is one habit that you could repeat weekly, monthly, quarterly. We recommend monthly. I think it's a good cadence. We think it's a good cadence. It means you can stick to it, but you are regularly checking in on your money. And it's a very simple 3-step process. So schedule a calendar event for budgeting, make it a date with yourself, make it fun. Go to a coffee shop, have a glass of wine, however you need to do it for yourself. Just make sure it is a date that you have with yourself and your spreadsheet or your budget every month. In that session, update your expenses from the last month. And this is really, really important because you need to know where your money is going. And that does sometimes change from month to month on a seasonal basis. And it just means that you have a really good understanding of where you could potentially make a little bit more space when it comes to saving and investing, which is where the third step comes in, which is planning your expenses for the next month. So it's really, really important when the money comes in that every cent, every rand has a plan for it. And the fun part is that it shouldn't all go to the responsible, safe things. You should also plan for the fun spending. If you want to go out and eat a nice dinner, if you want to save towards your traveling, if you're having a weekend away, all of that should be planned. And that means you know exactly where that money is going, and you know exactly that you have enough to save and invest. Which brings us to the 50-30-20 budgeting rule. So this isn't a Franc concept. This is actually a world-renowned concept, and this is a general rule. And obviously, it's different from person to person, but it's a really nice guideline to help inform where your budget is going and where that money is planned towards. So 50% goes to basic needs. That's things like your rent or your mortgage, your groceries, your school, your child's education, anything that is obviously needed in your life, that's kind of scheduled on a month-to-month basis. 30% is on the nice to haves. Like I said, plan that fun money, budget it in. We need to be enjoying our lives. We need to be enjoying the money that we're earning. So that really needs to have a nice destination to go to. And then that leaves 20% for saving, investment. And if you're paying off debt, making sure that that debt is being paid off on a regular monthly basis. 20% is a guideline. We've had a recent debate in the team that it should maybe be swapped around with nice to haves, and that should be 30%. That is really up to you. I personally think 20% is a nice target to reach. I think it's doable. Not everyone can get there, and that's fine. Every little piece obviously counts towards your savings and investments, but it's a nice one to try and work towards. And if you can surpass it, even better. Third and final point when it comes to budget is you need to have a good budget tracking structure. So I mentioned I'm an Excel girl, and I feel like many in this audience probably will be as well. So I worked with a few of our operations team members who are also absolute Excel pros, to put together a downloadable budget template pack. And I say pack because there's a personal one, there's a family one, there's a section for your investments. That QR code, if you scan it, will take you to the blog post, and it breaks down exactly how to use it, how to structure it for yourself, and obviously the link to actually download it as well. You'll see that there's budgeted versus actual. So that's planning ahead versus then mapping your expenses before. It's structured between your needed costs and your fund money. And it's a really nice way to keep track. Some people really enjoy using AI, so like a large language model like ChatGPT or Claude to do it for them. I am experimenting with that at the moment. Again, I keep falling back on my Excel spreadsheet, but really finding a structure and a tracking process that works for you is the most important thing. As long as there's a process, you're good to go. Cool. So you've now got your budget in place, hopefully. And now we need to start building out an emergency fund. And like I mentioned or alluded to before, our research found that this is one of the most powerful things that you can do to increase your financial well-being. And I'll tell you exactly why. So a fun way to look at this, and the one that we really enjoy talking about, is the champagne tower theory. So a lot of people that I chat to about investing and investing strategy say, cool, but like there's so many options out there. There's so many funds out there. There's so many things that I need to save for, invest towards. Where do I even start? And we say, think about a champagne tower, and you're pouring the champagne or the bubbly or the MCC in the top, and it's flowing down into all the different glasses. That top glass is your emergency fund. And that emergency fund should be full before you think about that money trickling down to anywhere else. And I'll tell you why. If a big unexpected cost comes up, if your washing machine breaks, if your geyser bursts, if your car breaks down, anything that's really important to you that you need to address immediately, you need to dip into either an emergency fund if you have it, or your investments if you don't have that. And obviously, when it comes to investing, and we'll get into that in a bit, you want to be thinking about the long term. You don't want to be dipping into those investments because you have to in an emergency. You want to be dipping into those investments because you planned it or because it's a good time to do so. So you want to build up an emergency fund, and you want to do that to avoid going into debt. What we found in our research was that building an emergency fund has 3 times more impact on reducing your financial stress than a salary increase. And that is self-explanatory. Having that safety net in place means you feel so much more confident and relaxed about your money. And that's obviously, as we've been talking about, really important when it comes to building out your finances. So when it comes to building out an emergency fund, we have 3 points that we think are really important to get right, that make it easier and mean that your emergency fund is really set for the purpose. So the first is target 3 months of your salary. 1 to 3 months is sometimes the guideline. Obviously, you're aiming towards 3 months. I think once you have 1 month of your emergency fund saved, you can probably start trickling your money into other parts of your savings and investments as well. We often say 6 months if you're self-employed. I know that the audience here are entrepreneurs and businesswomen, and many of you are self-employed or doing this on the side. This is really important because, as you know, money is not as consistent as a salaried employee. So you want to make sure that that emergency fund is in place if you aren't getting an income as well. It's a nice little safety net for that. The second point is that you want it in a high interest or a steady growth accessible place. So you don't want it to sit in a savings account where it's getting 2 to 5% interest on a month-to-month basis. So it's not actually doing anything. You want it to actually be growing, but you want it to be accessible. Obviously, if an emergency happens and you need the money now, you need to be able to access it. So we really like a money market fund. Because it is usually very accessible. In the case of Franc, where you can also access the money market fund, you can get it within 2 to 5 business days. The third is to separate it from your everyday accounts. So again, I'm a Standard Bank, for example, that's my transactional banking. And I have a little savings account, and it's so easy for me to transfer money into my savings account and then into my current account and into my savings account and into my current account. And you can see it obviously every time you log into your banking app. So what we recommend is, if you really want to keep your emergency fund safe and for the purpose that it is for emergencies, not for fun money, then prevent temptation and put it into a different place like the Franc account. Cool. So that's emergency fund. And I hope I really doubled down on exactly how important emergency funds are. Now your money can actually start growing. And it's far simpler than the financial industry would have you believe. We'll go into the investing basics. So we're going to start with something super basic, saving versus investing. And that might sound very simple, but a lot of people use them interchangeably and they're not necessarily the same thing. So saving is putting money aside to spend later. That's usually in a really safe, steady, but low growth space. And that's fine. And that's usually for your short-term goals and your short-term needs. Investing, on the other hand, is using your money to buy an asset which will grow in value over time. And that brings a bit of risk, which we'll go into now. The point of investing, where you get slightly higher growth or much higher growth, depending on what you're going to invest in, versus saving, where it's low risk, but it's steadily growing over time, is that you're going to help beat inflation. So what we don't realize is that your money loses value every year you leave it still. So if it's in your bank account, if it's in cash under your mattress, I don't know if anyone even does that anymore, but as an example, it's going to lose value because of inflation. Inflation was 2.8% last year, in the last year. The Allan Gray Money Market Fund, which is a very low risk, almost saving investment, product, was at 7.8%, and the Satrix Top 40 ETF was at 48.2%. I wanted to disclaim that was an incredibly good year. So that is obviously not something that you can expect every year when you're investing in the Satrix Top 40 ETF. It was obviously a credible performer, and hence, high five to anyone who was investing in the Satrix Top 40 ETF in the last year, because they saw some fantastic growth. But that gives you an understanding of investing versus saving, or leaving your money in your bank account, in which case it doesn't do anything, it actually goes backwards. So going a little bit deeper into the investing basics, there are 4 concepts every investor needs to understand. One is what an investment product is. And we've got a really nice analogy there to really bring it to life. Risk versus return, really important. Diversifying your assets and why that is so important, and how investments are taxed. So the first one is investment products. And we like to think of it as a Russian doll. So you have 3 different almost tiers of your investment products. So the first one is an investment product, essentially. So that could be a unit trust. It could be a tax-free savings account. It could be a retirement annuity. I'm going to pause here for a second, because I've had quite a few conversations with friends where, that we've spoken about tax-free savings accounts, and they don't realize that there are so many different options when it comes to tax-free savings accounts. They kind of think of it as one thing. What a lot of people don't realize is a tax-free savings account is a holder. It's an investment product. And within that holder is your fund. And you can choose almost any fund to be within that tax-free savings account holder. Obviously, depending on what's available to you, but that's really important, and we'll get into that in a second, is that you want to choose the right fund within a tax-free savings account, because it's a really important investment product for everyone to be invested in. So fund is something like the Allan Gray Money Market Fund. So that is essentially what we refer to as a cash fund. We say cash because it's almost like lending cash to the bank, and it gives you interest for lending that money to them. And that's how you grow your money in a money market fund. The Satrix Top 40 ETF and the Signatrix S&P 500 ETF. So an ETF is an exchange traded fund. It is an index tracking fund. So it tracks a number of different shares and the average performance of those shares. So in the case of the Satrix Top 40 ETF, for example, it's the top 40 companies in South Africa. And if you invest in that ETF, you're essentially investing in the average performance of those top 40 companies. It's a really nice way to automatically diversify your high equity investment for a little bit more diversification when you're investing in a slightly higher risk asset like equities, which brings us to assets. So you have your investment products Within your investment products, you have your funds. Within your funds, you have your assets. So funds are made up of different assets. In the case of the ETF, as I mentioned, you're investing in equities. Property is obviously also an asset. In the case of the money market fund, you're, as I mentioned, investing in cash. So I hope that gives you a good understanding of how an investment product is structured and the possibilities that you have when you're investing in those investment products as well. The second concept that is really important to understand is risk versus return. So when we talk about investment risk, we're talking about the chance that your investment loses value. And unfortunately, this is the reality when it comes to investment. When you're saving, you're almost guaranteed to get that money back with interest. When you're investing, you take on more risk. There is a chance that you don't get that money back with growth. You have the chance that that money goes backwards. But that is obviously balanced out with the chance of return. So the return is a gain or loss on your money. So when you take on more risk, you also take on the chance of higher return. And the diagram on the left is an example of kind of a fund estimate that we present in the Franc app when you are setting up your investment and your goal. And it shows you that when it comes to taking on risk, what that means is you're going to have high volatility. So like any market, and I feel like this audience would understand probably better than most, you have your ups and your downs. You know, your business does incredibly well sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't do well. So when you're investing in high risk assets like equities or an ETF, for example, you are obviously taking on the risk that there's going to be good times and bad times. But obviously the idea with that is you're going to see much higher growth over time. And I think this diagram really brings it to life. So remember we spoke about the top 40 performance. It was at 48.2% for the last year. It did incredibly well. It was a bumper year for it. In comparison, the Signia Itrix S&P 500, which tracks the top 500 businesses in the US, which is obviously having a time last year, went backwards. So anyone who invested in that ETF, which is usually a top performer, actually saw their money go backwards. That was last year. So obviously, and I want you to think about that graph again. You have good times and you have bad times. And when it comes to investing, you want to be investing for a long time because you want to ride out that volatility. But that also means you need to be comfortable with that risk, and you need to have a very solid plan for that money and know that you don't need that money right now. You have an emergency fund if ever there's an emergency. You have a savings account if for short-term goals, for example. We'll get into that in a second. But the money that you've put into a higher risk investment is for the long term, and you can ride out that volatility for a good time. So that brings us to the next concept, which is investment portfolio diversification. It's a mouthful. I'm surprised I didn't trip over that. And essentially what this means is not putting your eggs in one basket. So when it comes to risk, how you mitigate that risk is spreading your money across different assets or funds. So you have some slightly lower risk assets or funds like the money market fund or cash assets, and you have slightly higher risk funds like your ETFs, which invest in equities. And if you have your money spread between these, and we'll talk about how you potentially could spread that in a bit, you know that, okay, the year that the S&P 500 didn't do so well, that's okay, because I've got my other money in a money market fund and that's growing steadily. You're kind of mitigating your risk in that way. And it's a really important concept when it comes to investing. So this is an example just to pull this all together. So Signia Itrix S&P 500 ETF, which, as we saw, didn't do so well last year, but has done well in previous years, is on the bold side. So you have more ups and downs, but higher potential return. So over time, the S&P 500 has done incredibly well. It just had a really bad year last year. Then you have something slightly in the middle. So Satrix Global Balanced ETF, for example, that's got a mix of assets. So it's almost a already diversified fund within itself. It's going to be kind of medium. So medium risk, but medium potential return. And it's a nice one to have as like a bit of a buffer between your different goals and your different funds. And then on the right, you have your Allen Gray Money Market Fund, which is, as I mentioned, all in cash, which is really, really safe. So you might earn around 7% per year. It's steadier growth, but there's less chance of a nasty surprise. And that's usually good for your short-term goals as well. And then lastly, investment tax. And this is actually quite a new section that we've added into this masterclass because it keeps coming up as a question. When it comes to things like tax-free savings accounts or retirement annuities, all of those tax saving investment products are best understood if you understand how investments are taxed. So how investments are taxed depends on the kind of returns that you get. So when it comes to income tax, and this is based on interest-based returns, so something like your money market fund, for example, might be subject to income tax. 23,800 Rand of interest is tax-free in a year, and then the rest is taxed at your tax rate, so your income tax rate, for example. The second is called dividend withholding tax, and that is based on your dividends. So if you invest in equities, you might get dividends. And in this case, 20% is deducted from dividends before the money is then paid into your account. And this is before it even lands. If you were to withdraw your money, for example, that's before it even lands into your account. And the last one is capital gains tax. And this is this is based on profit when you sell an asset like a house, for example. This is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to try and explain it in the simplest way. So this is the first 50,000 Rand of gain. So if you, I'm going to make this super simple. If you bought your house for 100,000 Rand, it's obviously ridiculous, but for simplicity's sake, and you sold it for 145,000 Rand, for example, you wouldn't pay any capital gains tax because you only made 45,000 Rand gain. So this is only on the first 50,000 Rand gain is exempt. Above that, 40% of whatever your gain was minus 50,000% is added to your taxable income. So those are the three different investment taxes. Try to make it as simple as possible, and I'm happy to share this masterclass document as well, because so you can really engage with it. But this really helps to understand when it comes to tax saving investment products. Cool. I feel like I went over the toughest part here. I hope I didn't lose you. But we've really gone over some important concepts, budgeting to know where your money is going and to make sure that you have money available to save and invest, having an emergency fund in place to dip into should anything happen, so you don't have to dip into your investments, and some investment basics like what an investment product is made up of, investment risk versus return, and investment portfolio diversification. So let's put it all together and put that knowledge also into a plan. So taking all this knowledge, how do we go about actually putting together an investment portfolio? And what we like to advocate for is goal-based investing. And the reason for that is threefold. So when you set up your investment portfolio around your real goals, like being a baddie in Bali next year, putting down a deposit for a house in 3 to 5 years' time, having a killer retirement where you don't need to think about your finances and you're living off your investments. Basing your portfolio around those kinds of goals means your goal is always visible and real, and it means you're more likely to stick to it. So you're able to really visualize what that looks like, why you're putting your money towards it, and that helps you to make sure that you do it consistently on a month-to-month or a week-to-week basis. The second is that your yardstick for success is personal. So there are obviously trends and some things doing well or better than others. Funds that are absolutely killing it one year and then tanking the next. It's easy to be distracted by the market movements and to be distracted by other investors and market dynamics. When you have your goal in place and you have like a plan for that goal, it's easy to stick to it. And it helps to really keep you focused. And then the third is it's much easier to prioritize. So you really know what's most important to you. And that's really important because I'm sure I've thrown a lot at you. And it's sometimes hard to figure out how to sift through that. Your goal, you know what your goals are, and it helps to really frame everything around it. Okay, so what does this actually look like? So what your goals determine are your timelines. And your timelines determine the risk you take on, and the risk you take on determine the funds that you invest in. So when it comes to a short-term goal, and that might be something like saving for a holiday, and we like to say something between 1 to 3 years, we want to invest in something safe, like a money market fund. I spoke about the fact that it's got around 7 to 8% return year on year, and that's almost guaranteed. And it's a really, really safe space to put your money. You know that for your Bali and Bali holiday next year, you're sorted. Medium-term goals, and that's around 3 to 5 years. So that might be a house deposit for a house that you want to buy in 3 to 5 years' time. You want to go for a little bit more balance. So yes, you want some safety. It's still relatively short-term, but you also want to get really good growth because you have a bit of time to kind of ride out that volatility that we spoke about. So you might want to go 50% in cash funds, for example, and 50% in equities. I'll get into this in a second, but with Franc, we actually help you set up your investment portfolio by your goal. So you'll set up your goal, you'll say what it's for, you'll give it a name, you'll give it an image so you can really visualize it. And then you'll say what the timeline is, and that timeline will then automatically generate an investment strategy, which will be what your spread of funds might be or should be for that timeline and for that goal. So it's a nice way to then save towards something specific, and it's already diversified within that goal itself. And then lastly, your long-term goals. So that's anything over 5 years, sometimes also 10 years. And generally, we'd like to think of it like, maybe it's future business goal or or your retirement. And here you want to invest in a much higher risk because you have a lot of time to ride out any fluctuations and volatility and really stick to your plan. An example of a good fund in this space might be a high equity TFSA, which is the tax-free savings account. So I mentioned that tax-free savings account is an investment product. You can choose the fund within which to invest in. And in this case, it might be a high equity fund like an ETF. Which brings us to tax saving investment products. So we get this question a lot. And I think a lot of South Africans, although this is becoming more of a trend, which is really great to see, aren't utilizing the tax saving opportunities that they have when it comes to investing as they should. They've really set it up in such a way that you can save and not have that money go to the tax man. And I feel like, Anyaki, that's a topic for a whole nother session. And I know it's something that we talk about quite often as well. So there are two main tax saving investment products that you really should know about. And I'm going to describe them in a specific way. So tax-free savings accounts are all about tax savings later and then flexibility. So what I mean by that is when it comes to a tax-free savings account, you don't pay any tax on your growth on that investment. We spoke about how investments are taxed. As you know, there are certain exemptions when it comes to the growth on your investments. So that means to really make a tax-free savings account worthwhile, you want a high growth, slightly higher risk tax-free savings account or fund within that tax-free savings account so you can maximize on this tax-free or tax saving ability of a tax-free savings account. Flexibility, because technically you can dip into that account or that fund at any time. You don't want to, though, because you have certain limits and restrictions. So when it comes to a tax-free savings account, very recently in the budget speech, they announced an update to the annual deposit limit to 46,000 Rand. So that means within a year, you can only put 46,000 Rand into your tax-free savings account anymore, and you get heavily taxed. So you really don't want to do that. Within a lifetime, you can also only invest 500,000. And that's obviously limiting it. They definitely want tax from your investments. So that just means that you really need to be careful about, not going over that. Otherwise, you're heavily taxed. If you put 500,000 Rand into your tax-free savings account, for example, if you withdraw from that, you don't get to put or replace whatever you took out of it. So that's why it's really important that you want to put all that money that you're allowed to put into that tax-free savings account as quickly as possible. We even advocate, and this is possible, to do this for your child as soon as they're born, because then they have all those years for growth to really, really take effect. And then all that growth is completely tax-free. When they withdraw that money, they don't pay any tax on it. And then the second is a retirement annuity, and that's really about tax savings now plus guardrails. So why I say tax savings now is because contributions to your retirement annuity mean you can take those contributions up to, I think it's 350,000. I think that actually might have gone up to 430,000. You can withdraw, you can take out of your taxable income. So the income you pay tax on in the tax year is whatever you made, obviously minus your business expenses, and then minus whatever you put into your retirement annuity up to that certain amount. You obviously have tax-free growth while you invest. There is tax on what you then draw down from your retirement annuity when you get to retirement, which brings me to the guardrail side of things. So you can only access your savings pot until retirement. So until retirement, you have a savings pot that you can access money at any time. The majority of your money in your retirement annuity is not accessible until you retire. And then finally, there are restrictions on asset allocation. So they play a bit of a, I guess, big brother role in that there's a certain restriction on how much equity you can have in your retirement annuity, the fund in your retirement annuity, so that it's not too risky for I guess, for when you retire. So again, I threw a lot at you. I find when I learn best when I'm really interacting, engaging with the content. So I would really recommend you scanning this QR code. It will take you to our investment return calculator. You can see here you can toggle between a savings account, an investment goal, a tax-free savings account, and a retirement annuity. You can say how much you want that to invest it for, how much you want to deposit. You can really toggle between your different strategies. And all of this will help you to understand how your money can grow and really play with these ideas of risk return, timelines and timeframes, and growth over time. Okay, so to wrap things up, we spoke about budgeting, we spoke about emergency funds, we spoke about some basics of investing, and we pulled that all together to talk about goal-based investing as a means to building out your investment portfolio. This is a lot, and like I said, knowledge is definitely not the only problem when it comes to encouraging more South Africans to invest and grow their money. It's confidence, and it's just that first step. So we really wanted to finish off this masterclass with 3 things that you can do this week that are easy to implement and a really good way to get your investing muscles in motion, and start actually growing your money. So the first is to set a budget. So if you don't have that yet, download a template, throw your statements into ChatGPT, whatever it is that you need to do to understand where your money is going and plan for your money for the next month. Open an emergency fund. I really hope that I've emphasized enough how important an emergency fund is. Aim towards 3 months of your income saved, 6 months if you can, but just get started. Even 100 Rand or 500 Rand to start counts. And then lastly, set an investment goal. So think about something that's really important to you that obviously needs money that you want to work towards. Work out the timeline, work out what that means when it comes to your risk. As I mentioned before, when it comes to Franc, we've really built our product around this. So you set up a goal, you say what you're investing towards, you say what your timeline is, and we recommend a strategy, which is a mix of funds to match that goal. And that is essentially an investment goal that you can start investing towards. And here's a QR code for you to do exactly that. I've spoken about Franc, obviously, as award-winning digital wealth coach, helping over 35,000 South Africans save and invest with confidence. We're on all the app stores. So scan this QR code and that should take you directly to the app store that is on your phone. Okay, and then lastly, I really want to know how you feel now. So to the question, I should be investing, but I feel, I'm hoping I have a lot more readies. well, at least a lot more curious than I had before. And that
In the
we've helped
comments,
to
Cass,
dispel a little bit of that overwhelm and intimidation with this masterclass.
are you seeing the comments? Can you hear me again?
Okay,
Curious.
I can't hear you, Nyaki.
No. Can you guys hear me?
For everyone
Oh.
else, we had about 15, maybe 20 minutes of this technical
I
issue.
can't hear you. I can't hear you. Okay.
The live streams
saying
want their
curious.
Friday too. I get it.
Ready? Can you see the comments though?
Okay, it's great to see in the comments.
Okay.
Okay, well, everyone else can see or can hear Nyaki. So
okay.
I'll trust you wrap this up nicely.
Okay, anyway, so Kha's saying ready. Oh no. Kha's saying curious. Sarah is saying ready. Rupi says get the app ready. Let's go. Kha, you can hear me. Okay. So what I absolutely now Cassidy can't hear me. Guys, wait, hold on.
I hope you're not asking me any questions.
I am. Oh, this is the absolute work.
Let me try jumble.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
No.
Oh, okay. You know, it's the worst. Nothing. Who can hear me? You guys can hear me, and you can hear Cassidy. You can hear Nyaki. Okay. All right. Anyway, what I was saying, and this is maybe for everyone. I absolutely loved the. You know what, Cass? We can hear you both. It happens. Let me do this. We can hear you both. Okay, we're gone now. Cassidy's gone. Are you here, Cass? No. Okay, I don't know. It's okay. We've been having these technical difficulties for the longest time. I don't know what's happening. It's a platform thing. But what I absolutely love, I was taking notes about this, and the biggest takeaway for me, especially when it comes to savings and investment, but also how Franc and how Cassidy was explaining it, is actually goal-based investing, and I absolutely love this. This concept, because if you guys know me, I have been goal-based investing since I was 19 years old. What has been my goal? Tell me, guys. If you know me, if you've spoken to me for 5 minutes, what has been my goal? Do you guys know? Let me know in the chats. Do you know what the goal is? What is Nyaki's goal? When she wakes up in the morning, what is she like? Oh, what do I do this for? Okay, nobody, you guys are not. You're not focused. Anyway, the goal has always been retirement at 40. So my thing is, there we go. Ha, you get it. Done. Okay, retire at 40, right? So financial independence, retire early. That has been my goal. And the thing that Cass was talking about how it makes your investing just easier, but also it makes it super, it makes your decision making like so simple, because it's like, do I buy a new car, or do I stick to my investing at 40, right? Do I buy this house, or do I rent in this apartment, or do I stick to my investing at 40? So you end up living like a bit of a pauper until you get to your goal. But like, it's absolutely phenomenal, because so obviously I've got the big retirement at 40 thing, but another thing has always been travel, right? So it's like, do you buy the Coach bag or the Louis Vuitton bag or whatever, or do you save up for your travel? And that's like, I think one of the things that Cassidy's saying is, now she's messaging me, shame. One of the things that Cass is talking about here is just that, right? So like, try and focus on your goals, try and focus on the thing that, basically the thing that sets your heart on fire, right? What is the thing that you are trying to achieve in order to do that, right? And I think that's like the most important part in everything that you're doing. Another take home from Cassidy, sorry, I just WhatsApp called her so that she can just at least be part of the closing that I'm saying, and then also just see the comments. So yeah, have your goals. You guys know my big goal is retire at 40, but obviously have the smaller little fun goals. The other take home that I got, which is a thing that I struggle with, is like, money is for fun, guys. Like, right? It's for spending. We should have a little bit of fun. She had the 20%, 30% breakdown there. I think mine is even less. I think I've got like a 2% fund budget, and I think I'm going to increase that just a little bit. And one thing that I absolutely loved that she said, and I wrote it down, is your yardstick is your success. Your yardstick for success is personal, right? Because they're your goals ultimately. You can't like someone else can't decide for you, okay, this should be your goal, and then you stick it out. Like obviously if you're married, then you should have like communal goals but by having those personal goals, I think is like amazing. So goal-based investing, absolutely love. Have your goals so that you can invest and start small, guys. I think like when I started investing with my husband, which was then obviously boyfriend, I think we were doing like 50 Rand a month as students. Like literally, I mean, we didn't get a lot of money. So we were doing 50 Rand a month, and then he got a little bit of a job and I got a little bit of a job. And then we went up to it, you know, like you go up to 150 Rand and you go up to 1,000 Rand. And before you know it, like building that habit and building the muscle of just knowing that, you know, savings is, it's a non-negotiable. It's like how people, if you tithe, right? Tithing is a non-negotiable. It doesn't matter how the month is looking. You're going to give money to the Lord. You're going to give money to your investing. Like those are the non-negotiables that you have. The SARS one is probably the one that you should be non-negotiating with, but we can always like, you know, find SARS, find a reason not to do that. But I love that. Absolutely enjoyed this conversation. Let me know, you guys, if you do have any goals in your chat, and if you've ever thought about savings and investing like that. This has been an absolute I think, you know, the reason, you know, how Cass started in the beginning about understanding the different, where's my thought going with this? Like basically understanding the different markets and the different risk profiles is also quite important. And then matching it with what you want to do. And like, you know, the only thing that stops us as women, especially from getting to our financial goals and getting to our things, obviously we need to get money and all of that stuff, and our businesses will grow and our salaries will grow, but like being intimidated by just the words, right? Just when someone says investing, your ears already automatically shut off, or someone says ETF and you're just like, no, those things, I don't know about them. Like get curious about your money, because you know, in 50 years time, or not 50, in 40 years time, or in 10 years time, when you look back, it's just like everything is figure outable, guys. It really is not that complicated. And so thank you, Cass, for making it. She's here on my WhatsApp, guys. So thank you, Cass, for making it even simpler, for breaking it down even more. And I think we will share the presentation with you. But again, if you do want to catch the replay and you want to go over it, it is going to be available. So we're live on Facebook, we're live on LinkedIn, and we're live on YouTube. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get live on Instagram, so we did miss our Instagram baddies today. But was this helpful, guys? Just give me a thumbs up. I will read the comments out for Cass. How did you find this? What are you going to be investing in? What are your investment goals? Other than Nyaki being retired at 40. And I don't have that far to go. Like, let me tell you, I'm like, it's knocking, it's looking pretty close. I might need to re-look at the numbers. Comments. You guys can still hear me, right? Comments. Okay, no comments, that's fine. We are already at 2:00, and so thank you, guys. I see there's like a few of you online, 15 people online, which is amazing. Thank you guys for joining us. If you do not have any questions, and if you do have questions and you see this afterwards, just leave them in the chat below, and we will absolutely get back to you around that. 50 is knocking at my door. I better get bed. Sarah, listen, my girl, 50 is knocking. Like, just fix your life. And what do I absolutely love about investing? It's never too late to start. Like that's something that Cass was also kind of saying. It's like start now. Like the best time to have started is yesterday. The second best time is start now. So do that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, girls. Thank you, Cass, for joining us. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you for the masterclass. It has been an absolute, I'm hoping, game changer for the way that we see, understand, and plan for our finances. Thank you, guys. Bye.